We finally know what the new regular show series will be called, and it honestly tells us a lot about what to expect. From when it takes place to which characters are going to make a return. Spoiler alert, all of them! We're going to break down the direction they're going in with the series and speculate on some of the adventures that are in store for us. Are we just getting one-off adventures at the park, or will we be tackling some loose ends? Let's talk about it. Also, if you're new to the channel or feeling a stroll down memory lane, be sure to check out Roundtable Rewind, a new channel that has a bunch of Roundtable videos old and new, re-edited into themed compilations. We got 4 out right now on Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, Regular Show, and a variety hour of cartoon topics that you can check out right now with more on the way. And if you want to help us afford more cool art, like this thumbnail by the homie Art with Coda, consider supporting us for only $1 over on our Patreon. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now let's dive in. So about a week ago, fans noticed that Warner Bros. Discovery posted a job listing for a spring 2025 production internship on the brand new Regular Show, evidently called Regular Show: The Lost Tapes. Now, a title like The Lost Tapes doesn't exactly leave much room for the imagination. At the very end of the finale, it was revealed that Pops was up in heaven, watching back the entire series on VHS, presumably a box set. The last tape corresponding with the last episode, something that actually ties in perfectly with the lore, as physical media and the streaming wars played a big part in the back half of Season 8. Yeah, they were ahead of the curve with that one. There's an in-universe Blu-ray set that gives Mordecai his memories back, and I wish it were real! Come on, Warner, stop playing! So calling this new show The Lost Tapes implies that these are tapes and adventures that come before the grand finale, meaning it'll be set before at least the epilogue in the finale, and will star Mordecai and Rigby in their 20s, working at the park with everyone we know and love. Benson, Skips, Muscle Man, High Five Ghost, and yes, even Pops! He didn't have his big heroic sacrifice yet. We're heading towards a Simpsons-like purgatory, baby. Mordecai and Rigby 100 years! But why? Well, as I said in my last video speculating on this sequel series, they're sticking with these two in their prime because the characters are the most recognizable at this age and thus the most marketable. It's risky to age up characters and having to rebrand everything with their new look. And entertainment companies do not like taking risks nowadays. It's why Steven is usually his 14-year-old self on a lot of Steven Universe branding and merch instead of his 16-year-old self. I remember when Multiverses first leaked, you know, Warner's platform fighter that's kinda mid, yet I can't stop playing it because it has all my childhood icons and I'm easily pleased. When that game first leaked, it seemed like Steven was going to have his future look, but he's 14 in the final game, and the tie-in comics seem to be a little inconsistent with what Steven they use, at least on the covers. 16-year-old Steven with a neck belongs to the movie and future specifically, but little old chipmunk voice Steven? That's the Steven Universe, whether if you like it or not. It really seems like studios such as Warner Bros. Animation and Disney branded television are waving the white flag when it comes to pushing new ideas. They're stooping to Nickelodeon's level of just keeping the cash cows going for as long as possible. They find that it's a lot harder to get people invested into new ideas, and instead of putting in the time and effort to make those new ideas a hit gradually, instead of expecting an overnight success, they're just relying on the names people already know and will check out regardless of their age. The teens and adults who grew up with these shows, and the kids of today who are getting introduced to them for the first time. Nick has SpongeBob in the Loud House, with Avatar Studios now cooking up a bunch of projects. SpongeBob's spin-off, The Patrick Star Show, actually just got renewed for 2 more seasons. Apparently it's actually pretty solid, but I just haven't had any desire to check it out. Disney has Phineas and Ferb in Big City Greens, with Phineas rising from the grave with a season 5 next year, and Big City Greens is just trucking along with no end in sight. They recently got a 5th season, which will keep the show around for a couple more years. And Cartoon Network, aka Warner Discovery, now has Gumball making a return with a 7th season, scrapping their plans for a movie and sequel series. Although fans are still hoping that it'll happen, even though a movie at this point just wouldn't be executed in its original vision, considering the movie was going to rely on the season 6 cliffhanger, but whatever. Alongside Gumball and Regular Show The Lost Tapes, we also have Adventure Time Side Quest, which sounds like it'll just be a whole show of one-off adventures that's more in line with the first few seasons. As in, the deepest lore and light serialization has taken a backseat. But I've argued before that at least Adventure Time will have Fiona and Cake to continue the story and give us the characters all grown up. But it's hard to imagine that The Lost Tapes will be anything like Fiona and Cake. It definitely feels more like a companion to Side Quest. It probably will still be TV PG like the original, with the average 11-minute runtime and episodic approach to storytelling, which isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. I don't need a regular show sequel to be in the exact same format as Fiona and Cake. After all, Season 8 was their attempt at serialized storytelling with high stakes, and aside from the final batch of episodes, it's the weakest season of the entire original run. But I am disappointed that we probably won't see any more of Mordecai and Rigby as fathers, or as husbands, getting in some shenanigans reminiscent of Close Enough. I'm not here to be pessimistic, however. I still have hope that this setting can allow for a pretty fun twist. Because Pops' final regular show tape stops at the 25-year park reunion, who's to say that the lost tapes can't jump all over the timeline? Have some episodes set before the space arc with Pops alive, Mordecai simping over Margaret, and Muscle Man's giving stage 1 brain rot to a new generation, but then have some episodes set after the space arc, and just before the prologue, which was something I suggested in my last video. It could even be a fun guessing game with the audience, using context clues and background details to figure out where a particular episode is in the timeline. And if you're wondering what would even be the point in setting episodes after space, aside from the chance to see things like how the gang greet Pops, or when Mordecai finally pulled the trigger on leaving the park to pursue his art career, we can't act like regular show wrapped up perfectly with no unanswered questions. I mean, the finale is perfect on its own, but when you look at the bigger picture, there's a bit to still tackle. Something that might come to your mind right away is that Mordecai and the audience should get some closure with CJ. Now yes, I know Mordecai's love life took up way too much time in the original series, but despite that, and knowing that Mordecai gets with someone else, I still feel like we were cheated of an actual conclusion to that plot thread. Now I get it, it's true to life, you don't always get closure, yada yada, and Mordecai absolutely fumbled the bag. But this is a show where wings get you hammered, and an average line of dialogue sounds like this.
That horse right there fell out of the sky and has to pass a US history test or the whole earth is gonna explode.
What? So I don't think I'm asking for anything that's out of the realm of possibility. It just felt so anticlimactic with how Mordecai broke up with CJ at Muscle Man's wedding over his conflicted feelings, and after that we get an entire episode dedicated to Mordecai and Margaret realizing they're better off as just friends, while all CJ gets is 2 short cameos, the most prominent of the two being her salty at Margaret. That's not a high note to go out on, especially for a character that a lot of people liked and felt was done dirty. I really want to see at least one episode where Mordecai and CJ run into each other and end up having an awkward but much needed conversation about what happened. Mordecai owning up to being a shitty boyfriend, explaining that he and Margaret are just friends with no romantic inclination towards each other, and he'd like for the two of them to be on the same page. Maybe she's still telling to buzz off and they're better off not being a part of each other's lives, or maybe she'd be down to be friends and stick around as a recurring character. Either would be good, as long as we get some sort of acknowledgement of what happened between the two. Something else I'd love to see, and I'm really holding out for, is a proper introduction to Mordecai's wife, Steph. Despite the epilogue implying that the two met by bumping into each other at an art show, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case now that the series is coming back. They could easily execute things in a way where Mordecai met Steph long before his art career took off. They had some chemistry going, but for one reason or another, things didn't work out then. Maybe she had to move. Maybe he met her on vacation and she lives in a different country. But then she moves down to the States later. And ultimately, this moment where he bumps into her during the epilogue is a reunion that led to a long-term relationship. Look, the woman married Mordecai, and she's hot! That's enough of a reason to flesh out her character and allow viewers to see in her what Mordecai does. We're definitely going to get a lot of one-off adventures and hijinks, but sprinkling in episodes that continue to flesh out these characters and give us a clearer idea of where they end up could only be a positive. So let's hope they deliver so that this sequel can be just as much of a jolly good show as the first. But as always, these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. How do you feel about regular show The Lost Tapes based off what we know so far? And what are you hoping to see in it? Let us know in the comments down below, and stay in touch by giving me a follow over on Twitter and Instagram at AltricVox and at Roundtable Vids. Shout out to Art with Coda for another dope thumbnail. Check out his work, and if you enjoyed this video, please sort of like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace!